as we continue to make our way through the Christmas season. Usually the Sunday after Christmas is the Feast of the Holy Family, and that's what we celebrate today, and really celebrate all families, but in particular Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, who are the model of family life. The story that we hear today in Luke's Gospel maybe is not overly familiar to us. We may have bits and pieces of it. This is really once every 3 years. Actually, it only comes up in our cycle of readings. So it's pretty unusual to hear it, and some of the characters may be familiar, like you may have heard of Simeon before and such. But for the most part, this is an unfamiliar gospel passage, that probably would not be too unusual. But it says a lot to us about how Mary and Joseph were obedient to the law of God in what they were to do with their child. It's very similar to, in a sense, kind of what we do as well with the sacrament of baptism. We bring children to the church and we bless them and celebrate the sacrament and consecrate them to the Lord and Jesus Christ as priest, prophet, and king, much like Mary and Joseph were doing with Jesus, what we heard in our gospel today. But also, this is a great opportunity for us to think about families and how important family life is to our world and to our society. Several years ago, Pope John Paul II, who's now St. John Paul II, wrote a letter to all of the faithful of the world, in which he wrote about family life. And in that letter, he said that the family is the most important unit in society. The most important unit, before all else. The family is the most important unit in society. And he went on to explain what he meant by that is that it is within family life that we learn such virtues and values that are so important to our world. Things like trust, things like respect, things like love. You know, if you think about that, within the family life, a little child who is born is absolutely and completely dependent on their parents and their caregivers. They can't do anything without somebody feeding them and taking care of themselves, clothing them and such. They just are not physically capable of doing any of those things. As those needs are met, the child learns to trust that someone loves them, that someone cares for them. And psychologists have shown that if those basic needs are not met, it does have difficulty for people later in life. So it is within that family unit that those basic values, those basic notions of trust and respect and such are all learned. As a child grows, they also learn such things as restraint, that you don't necessarily get everything that you want. You learn the value of compromise. You have to get along with other members of your family. As families grow and new people are added, either by birth or adoption, there are also, in a sense, kind of, differences, and families' dynamics change at times. And successful families learn to kind of, in a sense, kind of work their way through these issues. But there are important things to learn that as you grow older, think about, people that you work with, that you go to school with and such. There are times where you have to surrender what you want for the other. There are times that you have to learn to compromise and various things, within your workplace or wherever it may be. And it is early on in the family life that we learn those very, very important values. John Paul also wrote that unfortunately it is also within the family system that often we learn such things as hate and racism and sexism. And families are under stress and strain. And I see that. I work with families as groups sometimes in counseling, and you get them all sitting, around in a room and such, and you see different dynamics. Families are really what they are individuals who have individual personalities, and they come together into a system and they try their best to function together. Successful families are able to, in a sense, kind of meld those differences together and able to compromise and to get along. Unsuccessful families have difficulty at times. It's very tough. I often say that it's important for us to pray for families, and this gets to the heart of what I mean by that. Successful families lead to a successful society, plain and simple. Without strong, successful families, our society really can fall apart, just because those basic things that are so essential in society, trust, respect, compromise are not learned at a young age. So the Feast of the Holy Family is about Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as a model of family life, but it's really about all of us as well, and really our contribution to the world at large, and how important it is that, we have strong families, we have good families for the people around us as well. So pray for families. Pray for yourselves, pray for your family, pray for other people's families as well, that we have strong families so we can have a strong society.